then I'll focus in Fairfield County, the demographics, the trends, kind of what we see, because there's a change going on, and it's important to understand, okay? I have a lot of slides, so I may click through them pretty quickly, and I apologize for sitting, but my pointer is broken, so I have to sit and do this manually. So you can interrupt me at any time if there's a slide you don't understand, or I may, and only the context. In terms of economic growth, we're facing a historic opportunity that goes probably back to when companies first started moving out of New York in the 1960s. In the 1960s, the move out of New York fueled the growth in Connecticut, particularly Fairfield County. And it happened for two reasons. One was safety. New York was considered unsafe. And two, the fiscal mess in New York. I was working on the House Banking and Currency as a staffer in Washington, and I was working on the Save New York. And then President Ford, basically the famous headline in the Daily News, dropped dead New York, because we did not do a bailout. That was the low point. What's happened, though, with Manhattan in particular is the New York economy has just boomed. It has come back very strong. Political leadership was very critical. Good political leadership, sound political leadership, focused on the right issues, safety and the fiscal stability was extremely important. What has happened, though, is that and this is the role of Connecticut. You've all heard the news, Connecticut is in a death spiral, people leaving in flocks. That narrative was created by the Wall Street Journal. And the reason for that narrative is they are convinced that Connecticut is the primary example of a failed liberal state. And you have to understand where the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal is coming from. And that tied in with a bunch of center-right organizations nationwide that see Connecticut as a perfect New England example of failure. So the story about Connecticut became a political story. Malloy's a terrible governor, we can't control the unions, we've got to cut spending, urban schools are terrible, Connecticut's in a death spiral. Okay. I want to show you what really is going on because there's a much more robust story about Connecticut's economy changing rapidly in the digital age. And this is really important, and GE would be the example of this. So the story of GE is part of this narrative of Connecticut failing. Connecticut is so bad, even GE left, right? And GE allowed that story to be told basically as a cover for their move to Massachusetts. The story they led was that Connecticut's taxes were out of control, and it didn't, most importantly, have the workforce for the digital age. And that's why we're going to Boston. The real story, as we now know, is that GE is a massive management failure. Probably the single largest management failure in the history of industrial America. It is an extraordinary story that will be written, but it's very clear now. I mean, their stock is $8 a share. The company is basically being sold in pieces, and it had nothing to do with taxes. It had nothing to do with labor force in Connecticut. It was a death spiral strategy to refigure that company, and that management team that moved to Boston is gone, all fired. What's really sad is it fed into a story about Connecticut's budget deficit and created the impression there was something fundamentally wrong with Connecticut. So what I want to show you is what really is going on in the tri-state economy and the real challenges Connecticut faces, because there are some real challenges, okay? And then we'll do Fairfield, and then we'll do marketing. Okay. All right, that was long-winded. You see where I'm going? Okay. All right. And you can disagree with this, those of you who love the Wall Street Journal. All right. Under the Business Council of Fairfield County, that's who I work for. We're a regional business organization headquartered in Stamford. Why do we do a lot of data work? There's no county government in Connecticut, so we piece together the economic data demographics for the county. All right, so that's the Business Council. We're focused on economic growth issues like transportation, workforce development. Okay, that's the Business Council. All right. Now, I want to show you this regional context and planning for the future. This presentation was done by the New York City Planning Department. Now let me explain the significance of this. The New York City Planning Department came out to Connecticut and interviewed all our mayors and first selectmen in Fairfield County. And their one question is, do you want to grow? And they got a very mixed message from suburban mayors and selectmen. They got, no, it's too crowded already. And shockingly, we don't want more kids. They're too expensive in our school system. In the cities do want to grow. So they came back to us, the woman who runs us, I know, and she said, listen, we really got to understand Connecticut a little bit better because here's our strategy. This is why, and just context. When I was Commissioner of Economic Development with Riker, we were always stealing companies from New York, at UBS. It was the border wars, it was the big fight, we're stealing their companies, they're stealing our companies. That game is completely over. New York has won, and their economy is expanding dramatically. So the game is shifting, so New York, instead of being fearful of Connecticut stealing their companies, right, are now reaching out to us saying, we gotta know if you wanna grow, because we're growing too quickly. All right, so that's what you gotta see. So just New York, 22 million people in that area. That's the New York tri-state area. New Jersey, right? Long Island, right? Okay. Now, this, over the last 20 years, 210 to 216, the growth in blue is all, see Manhattan? See what's going on? Look how Long Island is slow. It's a shame you can't see this, but this is New Haven. We're growing, this is not growing, this is not growing. Jersey's really not growing out here. It's all centered around Manhattan, but outward, okay? Very important to understand this. If I'm going too slow, we can speed this up. But.
You're not going too slow.
All right, so rail access and population growth. This is the key slide. Where there is rail lines, there is growth. The old strategy in the 1950s after World War II is you grow the economy on highways. Growth follows highways, the interstate highway system. And that was true. And in Connecticut, it went 95, 91. That's where the growth, they called it the golden banana, going up to Hartford on 91, 95. That's changing. It's now, the data is showing where there's a rail line, you're getting growth. So this area, see, this is really slowing. This is buses. They don't really have enough rail in here. Long Island, which has a rail system, is not growing. This is really a problem. Connecticut is in blue. We are growing. And if you look at Hoboken, Jersey City, Stamford, New York City, as a percentage of growth, Stamford's right in there. Jersey City, who knew? New York, now this is percentage, not total, right? But it just shows you where growth is occurring.
That's population growth?
Population. Yeah.
Are you going to tie that then to business growth?
I am, and you'll see what the problem is. Yeah.
I'm anticipating.
And what's the percentage?
Pardon me?
What's the percentage?
Well, the percentage in New York, here, I'll show you the next slide. I want to come back to this slide. Let me see.
This deck is going to be available.
Yeah, if you see in here, here's the numbers down here. So this is growing at about 6%. This is growing up at about, 2.5 in here. This is 210 to 215, okay? So this is when we're in recession. We're still growing a bit.
Is that an annual growth rate?
Annual growth rate. No, excuse me, that's over the 5-year period. No, it's a slow growth rate. It's over a 5-year period. So it's slow, we're growing, but slowly.
And that was released in 2017.
Yeah.
So it's post-2008.
Well, it's 210 to 215. Yeah, okay. Original melting pot, and this is really critical. 6.4 million foreign born. This is the power of immigration. Why the immigration debate here is so much different than other places. Look at Stanford. Foreign born. Stanford, 33% of the population of Stanford is foreign born. Stanford is a real melting pot, attracting a huge amount of immigrant labor that we could not operate the economy in Fairfield County without. And immigrant labor is not guys standing under the day jobs. It is highly sophisticated labor that our native population doesn't have the skills. That's the shocker. The Indian Pakistani population in Stanford is extraordinary because they have a skill set we don't have, graduating from our colleges and universities. And but this immigrant population, look at this. But look at Stanford. I mean, this is really quite amazing, the impact of immigration. And this is a big market. So when you're thinking about cultural organizations, you really need to understand what that is.
Do you have that broken out by origin?
I do. I don't have it with me. Yeah, I could get it for you though.
But Indian, Pakistani, and Stanford is very, very interesting from a programmatic standpoint.
The Indian population in Stanford is very educated, very wealthy. They have very strong cultural interests. There are a number of Indian art and dance groups in Stamford that are very sophisticated, but there's a market there. The Guatemalans tend to be very poor. The ones coming up on the caravan, they are poor. Many of them are illiterate, even in their own language. There's a difference. You have to understand the population here. I mean, Cubans is very educated, very business-oriented. I mean, really, that question is a very important question to understand the immigrant population. It's very varied. But there's a view that it's just all day workers. Not true. All right.
Even like linguistically, it's important.
Yeah. New York, here it is. So from 2008 to 2015, you can see New York City, 470 private sector jobs, a growth rate of 6%. Brooklyn is growing, Bronx is beginning to grow, Manhattan, Queens, Staten Island. I mean, we're here. Here's Bridgeport, White Plains. I'm sorry that you can't see it. Stanford's in here somewhere. We're not growing as rapidly as New York. Is everyone saying this? New York really is growing. To put it in context, Connecticut's population is the second slowest in the nation. So North Dakota is growing more rapidly than Connecticut. No, but think about that. It's really quite extraordinary. And as a result, our job growth is very slow because we don't have population growth. And you can see New York, though, is really growing. And the question this presentation is about, which is why New York was in Connecticut, is where's the growth going to go? So that's what I want to show you. Oh, I went back, sorry. Regional economy ignores borders. 1 million people commute into Manhattan, and 477,000 New York City residents commute out. So you got to really understand it's the old view of the, Westport. The Mad Men. I mean, Mad Men was about Westport, right? It's all about Fairfield County. I mean, the gray flannel suit, it's all Fairfield County. The view is commuters all live in Westport. Their wives are at home with the 2 children and the golden retriever. And they come home, they drink a little bit too much, they go back to work. And everybody lives in Fairfield County but works in Manhattan, right? That day is over. More people commute into Stamford when you take commuters coming from Connecticut and commuters coming in from New York than go to New York. That switch occurred 10 years ago. So let me go again on that. More people commute into Stamford, Connecticut, both from Connecticut and from New York, than go from Stamford into New York. And that changed over 10 years ago. A dramatic change in commuting patterns. Now still, New York is important, but if I'm going over on time, I can cut this short. But, all right, so just Fairfield County's contribution, 11,000 New York City residents in, 25,000 Fairfield County residents in. It kind of shows you the breakdown. Fairfield County, very high. All right, now this is the slide I want to show you. What New York is saying is in the future going forward, New York City projects future growth will be fueled by regional suburbs. So the last 20 years, growth has gone west of the Hudson. So the Hudson River is the critical divider. And it's gone to Jersey for 20 years. And then it was in New York, Brooklyn, Manhattan. They're basically built out. Manhattan's infrastructure really is at the congestion level. They can build some more, but it's built out. Brooklyn, it's an extraordinary thing. A house that sold 20 years ago in Dyker Heights for 80 grand is now 2.3 million, right? Brooklyn is an extraordinary development. So where's the growth going to go? De Blasio and Cuomo are in agreement on this. It's going to the Bronx. And it's really important to realize how important the Bronx is to Fairfield County. This is like a marriage made on a TV show. Bronx and Fairfield County, how did that ever happen? It is a political marriage that has self-interest that is, and I'll explain to you, it's really important to understand. The Bronx Co-op City, their test scores are better than any city in our state. See, we think of Co-op City, oh, that's just poor people. No, Co-op City is not poor people. Co-op City is a middle-class community with very good test scores in their school system. Not all their schools, but most, just so you understand.